I think it's really interesting when you come to terms with realizing what you're supposed to do in your life and why things happen the way they do. Because you came to a point of realizing that everything that happened to you doesn't define who you are. It doesn't define anything about you. It happened to you. So you can learn from that or grow from that or evolve from that situation, but be okay with what's going on. It's very comforting because you know that whatever you've gone through or whatever you've been through, it's not you anymore. Like it's fragments of who you were, but it doesn't define who you are. And when you get to that point, it just like blows your mind because you're like, I used to be that person. I'm not that person anymore because I changed the way, the outcome of what I think or how I feel about where I was. So, where I was in 2015 or where I was in 2009 is not the same person in 2025 because in that situation, maybe I was just living out of survival and I was just trying to live to not die or realize that in that situation, I was coping with things or I was dealing with things that I didn't understand. And now I know exactly why that happened. I don't agree with the way it happened or I don't agree with how it happened, but realizing that 10 years ago or 9 years ago or even 25 years ago, where I was is a different person than where I am today, right now, standing in front of you, because of the things that I went through, the horror that I went through, the things that evolved. It's just like when you go through situations and you're like, okay, I went through this situation and this is the outcome. It didn't feel very good. I didn't like it. I wasn't treated fairly in that moment. But realizing that okay, I wasn't treated fairly at that moment doesn't mean that I can't be treated fairly today. So realizing that situations that I was back then, maybe I blamed myself for them, even though 90% of it wasn't my fault, or even 70% of it wasn't my fault. Now coming to terms with the way I reacted or acted in that framework was not adultly because at the time I didn't understand what I understand today. So evolving and growing and learning where I was then to where I am now, it makes you think about, did I do everything right back then? And if I didn't, it's okay because you're constantly learning and evolving and growing as a human. So who I was 25 years ago is different than who I am today, or who I was back in 2010. Even when I was in 2005, the person that I was. Um, because when you become awakened, you can't unsee the veil. You can't unsee things. You can't undo things. It is what it is. Maybe you don't like the outcome of how it played out, but then later you look at it and you're like, okay, God's watching over me, or He's protecting me, or He's allowing me to go through situations that I don't like and I don't feel treated fairly. But last time I checked, we live on this planet and there is a lot of free will. So you can choose to feel the way you do, or you can choose to react the way you do because of how you were programmed or what you were taught. So now a lot of those beliefs don't apply anymore because you know that's not who you were. Now, today, you're a different person, even though you feel like you have similarities of who you were, but it doesn't define, because when you get to a point in life and you're kind of like, okay, I'm not going to say I don't care how the outcome is, but I know the outcome is going to work in my betterment, even if I don't agree with how it's playing out at this moment. It doesn't mean that I'm going to get treated fairly all the time. There might be stuff happening that you don't think is fair treated, but when you get to a point and you're okay with the outcome, because you know, even if it's painful or even if it's uncomfortable or even if it's unjust, you'll realize that this is who I used to be. That's not who I am today. That's who I used to be. So you play a character, and that character is constantly evolving into a different character. So you realize that things happen to you as a child, and you're like, okay, I don't feel like this is fair. I don't feel like this is just. I don't feel like this is nice. But then you realize, this is what I used to be, and I'm not that person anymore. I learned something different meeting with an energy redirector. And when you start redirecting your energy and you realizing that I redirected the energy that was taught to me, and I reprogrammed the energy, so now the outcome is going to be different because I chose something different. I chose a different outcome. And now, because I chose a different outcome, when it comes into action, because you are the director of your movie, you create your reality, you make it the way you want to. So when you get all that figured out, then you're like, wow, nothing can happen to me without my control. Nothing can happen to me without my coherence of what's going on. So when you get to that point, you're at peace.